Alrighty, for the sake of time, we will go ahead and get started, and then whoever else wants to join can hop on in. But I'm so excited to be hosting this workshop for you all today. Can't wait to give a little introduction about myself. But before we begin our mindful eating workshop, I would love to start with some introductions. Again, if you want to share where you're calling from, I'm calling from Los Angeles, so it's nice here. If you want to share just where you're calling from, what's going on, how your day is going, would love to hear from you guys. But in the meantime, would also like to do a quick breathing exercise together just to help orient us for the session, get our minds prepared to listen to this workshop. So if you want to go ahead and close your eyes, and you can either sit down or lay down, whatever is most comfortable for you. We'll go ahead and inhale for 5 seconds and then exhale for 5 seconds. We'll do this together. And whenever you guys are ready, we'll go ahead and inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can go ahead and return to your natural breath. And once again, I want to invite you to get comfortable and really begin to start thinking about what brought you to this presentation. If you can hang on for just one moment, the joys of working from home. My dog is getting into something. I'm going to step away for 5 seconds and I will be right back. All right. Don't we love working from home with our pets? All right. Well, I want to do just a quick introduction about who we are here at Flowly. We focus on pain and anxiety management using virtual reality and biofeedback. It's been really amazing just to see how these tools can help people manage these certain things. And we're so excited to specifically talk about mindful eating. So, food is a part of our everyday living. However, food, as we know, can be a challenging topic because it can be a source of anxiety, stress, and even pain for many. But food is such an integral part of nourishment in any healing and recovery plan that it's important to approach this with the science and individualization and understanding that it deserves. So, in this workshop today, we'll be exploring one specific aspect of food, and that is the act of eating itself. So, you might be sitting here wondering, how can eating help someone address anxiety, pain, and overall stress? We'll answer this question through the lens of mindful eating. We'll explore the science behind it, and we'll leave you with some actionable tips that you can apply to your own lifestyle. So, why is this important? Well, healthy eating habits can be one out of 4 of the most critical lifestyle toggles for longevity. Now, with food being one, I want to see if anyone has any idea of what the other critical lifestyle toggles for longevity is. I'll give you a few moments if you want to go ahead and put in the chat whatever you think that could be. I'm seeing community, mental health. Those are great and obviously are very, very important for human longevity. So, studies studied risk factors for mortality in people looking at four lifestyle categories. So, obviously, eating habits, exercise, smoking, and drinking. So, just by positively affecting one category, you can significantly reduce the risk of death. In fact, you can have the same lowered risk of death if you incorporated all four healthy habits, and even if you are quote unquote normal weight or overweight or obese. Now, I don't like personally using these labels for the sake um, of identifying certain weight factors, but for the sake of highlighting the findings of the study, we will just use those terms to demonstrate how much control you can actually take over your long-term health, depending on the lifestyle habits that you choose to implement. So again, this has nothing to do with your weight. That's not a category that we're using to determine how this will impact you. So this is why we felt like it was important to do a mindful eating workshop because this isn't a workshop again about gaining or losing weight. It's not even about what you specifically eat. This is about becoming informed about how eating can affect your long-term health and learning about how to improve how you eat. And so today we're going to talk about how you eat with the goal of improving mental health. All right. So, a little bit about me. I am Nicole Broman. I'm a certified integrative nutrition health coach, and I am passionate about simplifying health and wellness. And I believe in advocacy to equip each person with practical tools for wellness. Now, I've had my own experience with unique relationships to food, and I've really learned how to listen to my body and how to mindfully eat for myself in a way that has helped me become the best, healthiest version for myself. And so I'm so excited to be able to help cultivate this awareness for all of you today, and hopefully create a space that will foster wellness. And again, this webinar is intended to be used as an educational resource. And we know the conversations around food can be triggering with people who might struggle with their relationship with food or have experiences with disordered eating. Um, I think we all can maybe think of someone, whether it's yourself or maybe a friend or a loved one who has struggled with that. I know I do. And I think we can acknowledge just what an honor, acknowledge and honor what an incredibly difficult journey that is, and just to take care and self-compassion in this conversation. So if at any time you ever feel uncomfortable, just take a breath, take a break if you need to, if you need to step away. You can always return to this conversation via our blog, and we are recording this, so we'll be able to send this out at a later time. Um, so, with that being said, I hope you are able to join this conversation with curiosity, um, and just with self-compassion and grace. So let's talk about what is mindfulness. So to talk about mindfulness, I first want to define awareness because these two concepts are very intertwined. So awareness is seeing the world as it is, and mindfulness is being present without judgment. Now, you need to have awareness in order to be mindful. So you can think of awareness being the first step of mindfulness. You need to be able to see the world as it is to be able to truly be present with it. So let's dive into awareness for a moment because this will inform us about how we talk about mindfulness. So this image will make sense in a moment, but awareness is seeing the world as it is. And it's also being able to take off our own bias lens in order to see the bigger picture. This may sound simple, but I suspect many of you know how extremely hard this can be to achieve because we are always seeing the world through our own lens, our own interpretation of reality. And so, a way to think about awareness is imagining that you're sitting in a room with the lights off, watching a scary movie. You're alone, you're completely focused on the scary movie in front of you, and you're feeling your nervous system start to activate. And you notice that you're getting scared. Now, imagine that you're sitting in the same room at home watching the same scary movie. But now all of the lights are on and you have your family and your friends around you. You can still watch the scary movie and experience that feeling of fear, But because you have awareness of the people around you, the different features of the room that remind you that you're at home, maybe you have more awareness of different sensations going on in your body, that scary feeling, or excuse me, that scary movie doesn't seem as scary anymore. So you have more perspective. Being in a lit room, you have more awareness. And again, when you have more awareness, you can choose to have more mindfulness. So you can then, while sitting in the room, having greater awareness of the greater context of the room with the people, the lights, and the sounds around you, you can begin to feel present. And in feeling present, you might become mindful of the bond between yourself, the people around you. You might become more mindful of the sensation of the soft rug beneath your feet or the chair against your back. You might become more mindful of the fact that you're watching a movie to begin with. So let's take a moment to reflect because being able to be aware, of course, is the first step of being mindful. So it's helpful too because once you are aware, you can also become more aware of the things that you can do that di directly affect your situation, such as practicing mindfulness. So we want to take a moment and have you reflect on some awareness in the context of our workshop today by asking yourself these questions. Do you feel that you have some awareness of how you eat today? Is it some awareness, full awareness, no awareness, or are you not sure? Now, there's no right or wrong answer, but the time that you're taking to reflect is the first step into turning on those lights in the room where you're watching your movie. If you feel led or inspired, you are more than welcome to share your answers in the chat about where you're feeling coming into this conversation. Or if you want to take a note just for yourself, maybe with a journal or on your phone. This conversation, again, is for you and it's for you to become more aware and have this mindfulness around eating. So, if you feel like you want to share in the chat, we'd absolutely love to hear just how you're feeling coming into this conversation. And while you're thinking about these questions, there is another question that I want to ask you. If you want to reflect on just what brought you to the workshop today, what questions brought you here? Do you have questions about how mindful eating can help you feel more relaxed around food? Or do you have questions about how mindful eating could help with anxiety or pain? Do you have questions about how mindful eating could help you with your health goals? Now, again, if you want to put these in the chat, we will be having a question and answer time after the presentation. So feel free to throw any questions in at any time and we'll definitely get to them at the end. But again, if you want to take a moment just to reflect on that for yourself and write it down, I'd just like to take a moment to invite you to do that. All right, so now that we know that awareness is seeing the world as it is, and it can lead to mindfulness, which is to be present in the world as it is without judgment, intentionally focusing on your thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations in a given moment, you ask yourself, well, what is mindful eating? So there are long and short answers of this, but here it is in the most simple form. It is eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full. Mindful eating is not about judging your eating. In fact, it's the complete opposite. Enjoying your eating without judgment is the ultimate goal. So let's talk about the science of mindful eating for a moment. Now, most of us practice what we call mindless or distracted eating, and I know that I am very guilty of all of these. Some example of those could be eating while driving, eating while working, eating while watching TV or scrolling on the phone. And studies actually show that this is associated with increased anxiety, overeating, and weight gain. Intervention studies show that mindful eating can improve the behaviors around emotional or binge eating. This can also help improve feelings of shame, guilt, or anxiety around eating. In fact, a literature review of 68 intervention and observational studies show how mindful eating helps improve eating behaviors, leading to people slow down the pace of their meal, being able to recognize fullness, and having more control over eating. And in another randomized control trial, 194 adults with obesity showed mindfulness intervention around eating. And they found that sweet consumption that actually led to sweet consumption more actually led to decreased intake of sweets and maintenance of fasting glucose. So if you are someone who maybe struggles with eating a lot of sweets, or maybe you're trying to manage your blood sugar, this can be a helpful way to bring mindfulness around that situation. So addressing anxiety and pain. Now, mindful eating rituals can be a simple way to help manage and address anxiety. Food is one of the fundamental ways that we nourish our health. And again, we know that eating can be a source of anxiety for many people, especially around the word diet. It can cause anxiety and bring feelings of shame. But because mindfulness is process oriented, many people find that it is helpful because rather than being outcome driven, it focuses on your experience in the moment. So this is similar to our work in biofeedback. It's meeting your body where it's at and focusing on the experience rather than the outcome. Mindful eating also has shown particularly good results for chronic conditions as well. It cultivates more awareness of our food choices. It increases the overall experience of eating, which is something that we do each day. It also nourishes the neural pathways in our brain, which are associated with safety and calm, which is really important to focus on during your journey of healing from chronic pain and anxiety. So, back to the question of how do we eat mindfully? There are 6 pillars that I think are crucial to this. The first one is just take the pressure off. This is for you to explore nourishment at your own pace. And again, it's not about judging what you eat, how much you eat, how little you eat, when you eat, where you eat. It's just about being in the moment with your meal. Next is minimizing your distractions. Again, trying to focus on eating while we're not on our phones or on the TV or driving or working, which I know can be really, really hard. But it is a really important step as well. Next is chewing thoroughly. This is actually one of the first steps of your digestive process. When you start chewing your food, it's telling your body to start releasing certain enzymes to help break down the food for optimal digestion and nutrient absorption. So focusing on chewing your food, ideally till it's the consistency of oatmeal. Some people like to chew a certain number of times, but again, just as long as you're not scarfing down your food and hardly chewing it, just taking a moment to chew your food. This also helps you stay mindful because you are able to be more aware of the tastes and the textures and just everything that you're experiencing. Next is taking your time. I feel like this is kind of a given with the mindful eating, but a lot of us eat very rushed, myself included. So there's no judgment there, but being able to just take your time in between bites. A lot of people like to recommend setting your fork down in between every bite. So again, you're not just shoveling in food as quickly as you can just so you can get on to the next thing that you have to do. Next is tuning into your senses. This helps you identify your physical needs. So using your smell, taste, touch, sight, and sound before, during, and after eating. For example, acknowledging a need for hydration or for rest, or maybe you notice that you need to eat more fiber or incorporate some more movement. In being able to be in tune with these things can help you learn what physical hunger feels like for you. For some people, it might be a rumbling belly. For some people, it might not be a rumbling belly. Maybe it shows up as a headache or fatigue. And I mean, we all know what it's like to be hangry, right? I'm with you there. So being able to be in tune with those physical sensations can also be really helpful. And lastly, this one is a little bit more intentional, but starting a food journal. So, tracking down what you're eating and how you feel before and after that meal can be a really great way to track your body's needs and your responses. Being able to check in with how certain foods made you feel can help identify certain behavioral or dietary patterns, and that can offer some valuable insights about what your body needs. So, some tips on how to incorporate mindful eating into your lifestyle. So, with all of that being said, it might feel very overwhelming. You definitely don't feel like you have to do all at once. But if you're able to pick a time of the day to try mindful eating for yourself, maybe asking yourself, is there a specific day or a specific time or a specific meal or a specific food that you want to try it with? We recommend trying this consistently, starting very slowly. It can be as simple as one meal per week. From there, you can choose one meal a day or a certain day of the week or any time that you eat as an opportunity to practice mindful eating. Again, it's about being curious and holding space for yourself. It's not about being perfect. Now, with that being said, remember to hold space for your emotions because if you're like me and you're a perfectionist, it can be very easy to think I have to do this perfectly. I have to do all six pillars. But no, it's okay. Hold space for your emotions, meet yourself where you are at without judgment, and just stay curious throughout the journey. Now, let's talk about some potential obstacles that could come up on this journey. So, maybe a disordered or negative relationship with food. When slowing down, this dynamic becomes more clear, more obvious, and you might feel triggered when spending conscious time with your food more. A solution to this could be being mindful of your emotions, having awareness without judgment, and finding what feels good. And again, a food journal can be really helpful with this. Being able to just be aware of, does eating slowly feel better? Do small bites feel better? Am I eating less than I thought? More than I thought? Just being able to ask yourself, whose voice is speaking to me about my food? Now, a lot of us are raised with certain food rules, and it could be that you had to finish everything on your plate before you could get up from the dinner table. Or maybe there were certain rules around good foods and bad foods, and those voices can carry on throughout adulthood. So maybe asking, is this a caregiver who's speaking through my emotions right now, saying that this food is good or bad? Being able to take time to identify and question these rules that you've established can be really helpful. Next is noticing an internalized need to rush. Often we can tell ourselves, I'm wasting time, or this is stupid. And this can actually be indicative of an activated sympathetic nervous system. So that means that you could be in your fight or flight or stress response. And when we think about food, in this modern age, we have lost the connection to our food. Now, many cultures around the world embrace meals as spiritual practices or ways to connect deeper to the earth, to themselves, and to community. And unfortunately, in today's world, we don't like being bored, which I also want to tie back to the distracted eating. We don't like being bored when we're eating. So we're going to scroll on our phones or we're going to watch TV. It's really easy to do. So again, there's absolutely no judgment. But I think being able to have awareness and sending compassion to yourself as you experience both your impatience and your conscious decision to eat mindfully and slowly can be a really good way to even have that deeper connection with the meal in front of you. And so, lastly, is perfectionism. Again, I completely relate to this. I am a self-identified perfectionist. So maybe you're telling yourself, well, I'm not doing this right, or I have to chew exactly 40 times or else I'm failing, or I have to do all six pillars in order to be successful. Now, if those voices come up, because I'm sure they will, it happens. We're human, right? So being able to ask yourself, how can I reframe these beliefs in a way that supports my health and happiness? Now, that might look different for everyone because what health and happiness means to you is specific to you and perfectly unique, and that's okay. But being able to ask yourself and aligning to those goals is going to be key for you. Now, we all deserve to delight in our food and experience enjoyment during these meals. So, these techniques, again, are here to support you. they're not to judge or grade you, and hopefully they're able to just help you have a more open and curious and really ultimately the relationship with food that you desire to have, because I know that can look different for everyone. So with that being said, would love to open up the floor to any questions, comments, concerns. I know it's a lot, it can be kind of a loaded topic. So again, we want to just hold space and acknowledge that uh, this can be a challenging topic for some, or maybe there's some questions that were brought up. So um, I'll go ahead and open up the chat here. I think I'm going to stop sharing actually, and then we are going to do it this way. All right. Fabulous. So how would you eat mindfully if you're in a vocation where you eat whenever you have, and it's usually in very short bursts? This is a fantastic question, and I think a lot of us can relate to that who maybe work 9 to 5 or we're just traveling a lot. I think being able to set yourself up for success in a few ways. One, if you have a couple hours 1 day a week to do some meal prep. And that could look like making meals that you can pop in the microwave when you're on your lunch break, or they could be cold lunches, that you could eat if you have a moment. Obviously, we can't just, sit down if we're traveling or whatever and have the perfect, again, mindful meal. It's not about perfection, but being able to set yourself up for success in the way that works best for you. So if, for example, you're working a 9 to 5 and you have 30 minutes for lunch break, having time or prepping meals ahead of time that you can, again, either pop in the microwave, or if it's a cold lunch, you can just eat it on your break. Being able to be mindful of not scrolling while you're doing it. This also could look like setting up boundaries at your work, and maybe just politely asking, if someone tries to talk to you about work while you're on your lunch break, maybe standing up for yourself there and just saying like, I just need a few moments to eat. I'll be happy to help you. It can be really hard because it does include some lifestyle changes, which when we all have certain habits and things that we're used to doing, um, it can be difficult to change. So I do want to acknowledge that. But either, again, meal prepping, or if you are short on time and you want to just grab snacks that are high in protein, um, that are nutrient dense, can also be really helpful, especially if you do need to have a bite to eat, maybe when you're driving or having a conversation with someone, just something that will be nourishing, that you can eat quickly. So again, if you're able to incorporate any pillars throughout the day, it could be as simple as taking a few deep breaths before you eat. If you have to eat when you're in a meeting or, whatever, if you're rushing around, taking deep breaths can be really helpful as well. So I relate to that. That is a very good question. Now, the next question is, I notice with certain medications, it can lead to not feeling hungry. So it's hard to be in tune with hunger. Any suggestions on being more in tune? That is such a valid question. And I know, again, so many people can relate to that. Um, I think a lot of it has to start with that internal awareness. And so whether you're doing a food journal and let's say you notice like at 4 p.m. you get a headache every day and you're like, why am I getting a headache? That could be a cue that maybe you're hungry, but maybe you're not feeling that sensation. So just being in tune again with those senses, what is happening in your body. I think too, being able to, if you're able to, be on some sort of eating schedule. I know some people do really well with just eating every couple of hours. And again, it doesn't have to be a big meal, especially if you're not feeling hungry. We don't want to force ourselves to eat a meal that is too much. But maybe it looks like just having a smoothie or a snack every couple of hours, just something to help your body And as you do that more, I think you will start noticing when you get hungry or those cues that will eventually show up. Takes time and it takes a lot of self-awareness and just self-observation. So again, just holding that with self-compassion and um, just trying different things that work for you. For some people, some things might work, some things might not. But it can be tricky because I know certain medications can have that effect, and there's not much we can do about it. So just being able to have compassion and just have awareness, I think is the key. Um, yeah, so next question, following up on your answer, hearing that eating while driving is really bad for your digestion because it's also being distracted. If that's the only time I can eat, how do I practice doing it mindfully? That is a great question. And I think it's true. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be the optimal way to digest your food because you're distracted. You might be in a little more fight or flight depending on where you're driving. I know if you're in Los Angeles, like you're just always aware because there's so much traffic. Um, so I would recommend just focusing on your breath because obviously it's not like you can just sit there and close your eyes and be like, what taste am I tasting or what textures are going on? Well, you actually can be like ask yourself, what textures am I feeling? What taste am I feeling? Just don't do it while you're closing your eyes. But just being able to maybe play some calming music or just something in the background. Um, Again, it's not an ideal situation, but I know for some people, I know for a lot of people, that is the only time that they have to eat. And so I think too, stress and the stress about eating can be worse than being distracted while eating, if that makes sense. So if you're in the car and you're like, I am so stressed about eating in the car, my digestion is not going to be as good as it could be. Um, I would just invite you to take some deep breaths, just acknowledge where you're at, and just say it's going to be okay. It's not going to be like this forever. The stress of the stress can be worse than actually eating in the car. So that is my tip there, but it is hard. How can I tell the difference between hunger and hydration? I've heard that the two can be confused for the other. That is a great question. And that is very uniquely bio-individual for each person. Again, it's about tuning into those cues. Do you get a headache? Do you feel tired? If you feel your stomach rumbling, then I would say you're probably it might be fine to eat. Of course, there's going to be no right or wrong answer here, and just again being in tune with what is happening in your body. And if you're not sure, maybe take a sip of water. And if after a few minutes you're like, nope, I'm still hungry, that can be a sign to eat. Um, there's no right or wrong. Again, it is very bio individual, but that would be, I think, my top tip is if you're not sure, just try and see what happens. Try taking a sip of water, and if you're still hungry, then it could be time to eat. All right. These are great questions, you guys. Thank you so much, and definitely keep them coming. Um, I noticed that I get anxiety after eating in general. What can I do to calm my nervous system down? That is a great question. And I just am very grateful for the transparency here because I know that's not something to be taken lightly. Um, I think one, being able to identify why are you feeling anxious after eating and being able to get to the root of that. Again, that is going to be bio-individual and unique to you. But some ways to calm down your nervous system, again, breathing, being able to, like how we started this session today, taking an inhale for 5 seconds and an exhale for 5 seconds, being mindful of your breath, being mindful of what are you smelling, using your senses, what am I touching, what am I tasting, what am I hearing, being able to find physical and tangible ways to bring your body into the present moment, right? Because anxiety is trying to distract us from being in the present moment. So finding ways to just help center yourself. It could be also as simple as maybe listening to your favorite song. Um, Something that has personally helped me when I get anxiety is I have a very specific song that I only listen to when I'm feeling anxious that I know will calm me down. And so in those moments, it's like, okay, I'm feeling these sensations or what, whatever is telling me that I'm feeling or that I'm having anxiety. And I'll play that song and I'll just close my eyes. I'll take some deep breaths. Um, Maybe doing some tapping. I know some people do tapping to help center themselves again, just being present with your body. But any song that works for you. For me, it's an instrumental song. So, um, but yeah, that is what helps me. If anyone else has any questions, we will hang out here for a few more minutes. But these were amazing questions, and I hope that this webinar was informational, and educational, and hopefully, again, help bring just some peace around the conversation of eating, because I know it can be tricky for some. Um, and again, if you also want to learn more about what we do here at Flowly, feel free to put that in the chat and we'll get you our contact information. Um, but yes, I want to thank you all again. That is all that I have for you guys. If you want to have the rest of your evening back, I hope you have a wonderful night wherever you are. And again, I will hang out for a few more minutes if you want to ask any more questions or just hang out and chat. But that is all for me. I hope you all have a wonderful night.